What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And today I'm going to be trying out some new things. So this is like tips and tricks that I've seen a lot of other videos that people are saying it's this easy, it's as simple as that. So the premise of this is to see, is it actually this and that easy? So I'm going to be trying a couple of different things. I'm going to be adding onto this Lehman Rust that I'm building some weld lines. I'm going to try doing a cast steel effect. I'm going to combine them both. I'm going to be doing some battle damage, but I've done that before, I'll admit to that. Oil paints. I've never used oil paints on any of my models yet, so I keep seeing it more and more and more for people to use oils. So I'm going to give that a go and see how it is. I'm also going to be trying a new sort of like heated metal effect, which I'm going to be trying on the exhaust pipes of this tank once they're built. And then we're going to be muddying up nicely in a style that I don't usually muddy up my tanks. So everything's going to be brought in, and we're going to have a go and see how easy these tricks really are. Right, so let's kick it all off with some weld lines. That's the word I'm looking for. And for that, I'm going to be using Milliput. You can use any other brand that you have. That is the same as Milliput, so Green Stuff or Tamiya putties, whatever you have. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Rig, why are you adding weld lines to your tank? Now, I haven't seen anyone in the Warhammer community, I mean, I may be wrong, and you can tell me as much in the comments, but I haven't seen anyone else add weld lines to their tanks. Now, I know that the Mechanicum probably isn't doing that, but the real reason is these kits aren't the greatest, and there's these big gaps, as you can see here, and I'm just trying to hide them at the same time as giving it that rushed battlefield fix. So this front sponson might have been damaged, so they've rushed back to they've got back to base. They've then had it repaired or replaced entirely, and they've just quickly welded this on, and at the same time it hides the shoddy, not shoddy, but just the imperfections in the actual modelling kit itself. So that's the reasons why, and here's the knowledge how. So once you've got your Milliput ready, roll it out into thin little noodles or spaghetti, whatever you want to call it, and along that seam line on the modelling kit, I'm just going to place this down for the moment. Once it's on there, I'm going to be going back over with another tool. But once that's done, I'm then going to add some more onto it, just to make it fit in with the environment, to make it look like the whole, there's not just why is there a random weld there. I'm going to put it around the whole of this sponson to make sure that it all blends in. So once you've got all your Milliput on, you just use the back of the tool. You just want something that's got a bit of a point to it, not a bit of a poke to it. Well, I suppose it is a bit pokey as well. You could use something as simple as a toothpick to do this, but I've used the back of this modelling tool because it was to hand and it gave me quite a nice effect. So I'm just pushing it into the Milliput and pushing up slightly, just to give it that sort of weld-like feel. Now, the only thing I would suggest is that if you feel you've put too much Milliput down, like I felt like I'd put too much down, then you probably have. So I should have gone back, I should have taken this off, tried it again, but with a bit of practice, and by the time I'd finished this model, the last weld line I did, I was really happy with. So it doesn't take long to learn, it is quick and easy. Just never be afraid to go back and correct any mistakes that you feel that you've made. So, cast steel. Why am I doing a sort of a cast steel texture? So what I want for this now is to look like certain panels have been replaced in a hurry. They've maybe come from another tank, but they haven't been machined as well. So just to give it that little bit more character, I'm going to be making it look like it's got a rougher surface to it, so it's come out of the Forge world as quick as it can to get to the battlefield. They're spending less time on it and more time on getting it on the tanks to keep them fighting. So this is irreplaceable. Once you have done this, you cannot go back. I just want to make that clear now. Once you start, you've got to commit, because I don't think there's a way to save your panels if you think you've done it wrong or you don't like it. I would suggest maybe trying it for yourself on a bit of spare spare plastic, bit of sprue. Don't go straight in and do it like I have. Luckily, I think this turned out really well, and I think I'm going to do an entire tank with this texture to it, just to make it more visually pleasing to look at and a bit more work into the actual model kit itself. So to get this done, you're going to need a thin plastic glue or an extra thin plastic cement glue. So what we're doing is we're spreading it over, and it's going to melt that top layer of plastic. Then using an old stiff brush that you don't mind mucking up, we're just stabbing at it in a stippling motion, and we're roughing up that panel and that area. And once the glue's sort of, if you think it's starting to dry up, you can put more down, and then just to finish it up, gloss over again with a little bit more glue just to melt that top down so it's not so jagged, or you can leave it as jagged as you want, but I did at the end, I went back over just to sort of subtle it down and make it look more in keeping with how cast steel looks. So to bring it all together, I'm just going to do a small section of a panel just to see how it looks when you're not doing an entire section, just to make it look like a repair's been done, maybe a missile's gone through it, maybe an orc has decided he wants to know what's under this bit of armor panel. Surprise, more track. And to do that, I'm just going to do the cast steel effect, and then I'm going to put a bead of milliput around it and make it look like a weld line. And actually this is the best weld line I felt like I did, because I'd had the practice of doing the other little weld lines, and that's how easy doing these were. Within seconds of starting it, I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm becoming a pro already, and it can only get better from this point on. And the most exciting thing about putting this all up here on YouTube for you guys to see and learn about is I'm excited to see what some of you guys are going to start doing with this. And if you do any of it on Instagram, Rig Miniatures, tag me in it. I want to have a look and I want to see. So, battle damage. I'm just going to skim through this one real quick because I think we all know how to do battle damage, but as I said, this is just seeing how quick and easy things can be. And what I'm going to do is just use my Dremel and my hobby knife just to sort of scratch bits up, cut bits off, put some big dents in it and put some bullet holes in it. So it's probably one of the easiest conversions that you can do to any vehicle, and it is nice and simple. It's just all about choosing a spot that you want to rough it up a bit and just make it look like it's a bit more involved in the environment when it's on the table. So don't be afraid to just get in there, start putting holes on it, and you know, again, as I've said earlier when doing the cast steel effect, this is irreversible. You're not going back once you've done it. You might be able to fill it in with a bit of green stuff, milliput or plastic putty, but once it's there, it's pretty much final. So choose wisely in your spots, but at the same time, just go a bit crazy because things are flying absolutely everywhere when there is in the battle situations. So don't be afraid just to sort of get in there and stick them anywhere that you want. So what do I mean by test new ideas? Now, I have never used oil paints for painting any of my miniatures. I've used it for painting on canvases before. I have a rough idea of how they work. But what I've never done is I've never put them on anything plastic. So I don't know how they're going to react with the acrylic paint. Now, everyone that does this sort of says, yeah, it's fine, get it on there, do this, do that, smashing it out. And I'm not saying I don't believe them, and I really like the effects that some people can do with this. So to dip my toe in before I put it straight onto the model, I've got this little test piece that I painted up in a much earlier video, and I'm going to see how it's reacting with the actual, how it goes on, how it feels, how it flows. I would suggest giving this a go yourself. If you're a little bit skeptical, paint up a little thing like I have and just use it to test ideas with. Now, the keen-eyed of you may notice that I'm not using white spirit here. I'm actually using an oil paint thinning medium. So it's not quite the effect that people may be expecting, or that everyone's talking about when using it with white spirits, that's been delayed by Amazon. I'm actually still waiting for it to turn up now. But it's worked really well. So when I was getting this on, I was just seeing how it reacted, how it flowed, and it flowed through the creases and the crevices on here really nicely. And actually, because I poured myself a little extra where I had no paint in it, to see if I can then shift it around and move it, such as you see in other videos, and yeah, it worked really nicely. So this is an effect that I now know that I can use on my tank, and I can give it a good old crack and see what the finished result will be when we get there. So what do I mean by repair and repaint? Now what I'm trying to get across is that at times they would have repainted part of the armour panels. It might have got so bad that the commissars come round and gone, oi numpties, square this away and get your tank fixed. So they might have gone over, and they might not have had the same colour paint, you never know, and they've just gone over it and they've repainted it. So the reason why it wouldn't be the same colour is that the actual original paint would have faded from being in the sun or not being in the sun, maybe just from generic bioacid from Tyranids has probably made that paint bubble away somewhere. So, and also on the panels that I've done the cast steel effect on, I want them to be a different colour as well, just to make them stand out and give them that character. So I'm just going to go around the tank and just add just random patches of lighter coloured paint or darker colour paint compared to what's already on there. So what I mean by heat and rusting is on these two exhaust pipes back here, I'm going to be using my sponge on a stick and just over the grey colour that I've put down, which is Tyre Black by Vallejo, I've just been putting a matte white colour onto it, just splotching it on. Because if you look at actual exhaust pipes in real life, you see that sort of that white fleckling that they get just from heat stress. So I'm going to start off with that as the two base layers in which we're going to build up from. So the next step is using the same sponge on the stick. I'm going to be putting some chocolate brown colour on there and just dabbing it over all those white speckles that we've got to give it that starting base layer for the rust. So then staying with the same colour, we're going to just put it onto this brush and I'm going to stipple it on. So it's quite a stiff brush that I'm using here, just so it's not smashing the paint right down. It's giving that smaller, fine detail effect on it. And then once that's done, I'm going to go to my favourite rust wash colour, which is Old Rust by Vallejo. And then just putting it over all those brown areas that I've got in there. I'm just going to be putting that over the top, not too over dramatically, but just enough so that it looks like the rust is then forming on those darker brown parts. So there's one final layer that I'm going to do. It's just put on some black oxide pigment powder from Vallejo and just brush it mostly into the vents and just spray it down, just to make it look like all the soot that's coming out from the engine fumes. And that's how we're doing the rust and the heat effect. That's the word. So de-stressed metal. With that, I'm going to be doing that oil barrel that I've got at the back here. I'm going to start off by giving it a big old base coat of Iron Warriors Silver. Once that's done, I'm going to get my Word Bearer Red and I'm just going to start stippling it onto that silver in a way that so I'm not covering all the silver that's underneath. I'm stippling it on quite lightly, and just so it gives that enough for the metal to still be showing through, that metal colour to still be showing through, so it looks like the paint is thinly wearing away. Now for our highlight colour, we're going to go in with Mephiston Red and just again stipple it on, and leaving that silver still showing through in certain places to look like where it's rubbing away and where the paint is chipping off. Once we've done all that, we're pretty much ready to do our final weathering effect. So I've done this for a two-step. I've done a little bit of the pigment that I've done before. I showed you in my last video about my Armoured Company where I put some of that pigment down. But the main effect is going to come from this Vallejo mud. Now I'm going to do a big thick build-up of mud at the back, because that's where the mud would be tracking up to. If the tank's going forward, that is. And then I'm going to do a lighter amount on the front, so it's all getting scraped off at that back armour panel before coming out a little bit cleaner at the front. And it's as simple as that. This weathering texture paint is incredible. I normally just use it on my dioramas, which is why I'm putting it in as an extra sort of, you know, quick and easy tip. That this one I haven't seen other people doing, but I'm sure they do it, and I'm just for you guys to know, this stuff gives that nice mudded effect really quickly and really easily, and it can be done in moments. I think this weathering effect this final step took me about 10 minutes. And that's that. So I'm just going to recap quickly. So you've got the weld lines. I think with a bit more practice, they will be easy to do. They'll be nice little effect to add. That adds a bit of character to your tank. The cast steel, I can see it may have a little bit more validity to it. I might try doing a whole tank in this sort of style, just to see what that would look like as well. And that, you know, it'll make that tank very individual, and it will stand out from the rest. The battle damage, everyone does battle damage. It just depends how much you put on or how little you put on. Oil paints, brilliant. I will be starting to use that a lot more. It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, and you know, I kind of wish I had started and tried them earlier. Doing the repair and the repaint and repairing, I think that, you know, I just feel like it's all come together. It all looks nice. It's got this tank now has so much character to it. And yeah, let's have a look at the final finished results. Guys, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure. Please like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. And I really do hope to see you in the next one.